Pull up a chair, friend. Let me tell you about a time when a nickel meant something, when families made feasts from what others threw away, and when waste not, want not wasn't just a saying, it was survival. Today, we're diving into 25 ingenious meals that kept families fed during the toughest times. Not the boxed mac and cheese you see today, but the real deal. Elbow macaroni swimming in homemade cheese sauce made from government commodities. Let's start with that classic. Number 1. Real mac and cheese. Now, forget that bright orange powder. Depression-era mac and cheese was elbow macaroni, 5 cents a pound, mixed with a cheese sauce made from government cheese, a splash of evaporated milk, and maybe a pat of butter if you were lucky. The Kraft macaroni and cheese box didn't arrive until 1937, selling for 19 cents and marketed as feeding a family of 4. My grandmother would boil those noodles in salted water, drain them, then stir in chunks of that government-issued American cheese until it melted into something creamy and comforting. Sometimes she'd crisp up breadcrumbs from stale bread on top if we had bread to spare. Folks would add a spoonful of bacon grease for extra flavor when butter wasn't available. Number 2. Hoover Stew. Named after President Herbert Hoover, and not in a friendly way, I might add this was what you made when the cupboard was nearly bare. They called it Hoover Stew as a bitter joke about the president blamed for the Depression. You'd take whatever you had. Macaroni, hot dogs if you could afford them, otherwise canned, Vienna sausages or just beans, canned tomatoes, and corn. Everything went into one pot with water and simmered until it became something resembling a meal. A can of Vienna sausages cost about 7 cents in 1933, making it one of the cheapest proteins available. Some families used the liquid from canned vegetables as the soup base to waste nothing. Others threw in stale crackers to thicken it up. My uncle used to say, "It ain't much, but it's hot and it fills the belly." And that was enough. Number 3. Potato soup. Lord, we ate potatoes every which way. But potato soup? That was comfort in a bowl. You'd dice up potatoes, 10 pounds, cost maybe 15 cents, add them to water with an onion if you had one, maybe some milk toward the end, salt, pepper, and let it simmer until those potatoes broke down into something creamy. Americans increased their potato consumption by 40% during the Depression because they were filling and cheap. Mash some of the potatoes right in the pot to make it thick and creamy without using much milk or cream. Folks called it poor man's chowder in some parts. Others knew it as stone soup when it was really thin and you had to use your imagination. Bacon rinds for flavor. You'd fish them out before serving, or a spoonful of bacon grease stirred in at the end. Some families would crack an egg into each bowl to make it stretch further. Number 4. Beans and cornbread. This combination fed more families through hard times than just about anything else. A pound of dried pinto beans cost a nickel and would feed a family for 2 days. You'd soak them overnight, then simmer them with a ham hock if you were blessed, or just an onion and some salt pork if you weren't. Beans provided essential protein when meat was scarce, and when combined with cornbread, they created a complete protein. The cornbread was cornmeal, water, a little flour if you had it, maybe an egg, and bacon grease. Mix it up, pour it in a cast iron skillet, and bake until golden. Some called it hillbilly filet mignon, or Hoover's feast, again, not said kindly. Some folks cooked their cornbread right on top of a wood stove in the morning, then refried slices in bacon grease for supper. Number 5. Fried Bologna sandwiches. Now, here's something the kids actually got excited about. A chub of bologna cost about 25 cents and could make sandwiches for days. You'd slice it thick, about a 1/4 inch, cut a little slit in the side so it wouldn't curl up, and fry it in a pan until the edges got crispy and caramelized. Oscar Mayer began mass-producing bologna in the 1920s, making it one of the most affordable meats during the Depression. Slap it between 2 pieces of white bread, no butter, maybe a little mustard if you had it, and you had yourself a meal. Fancy folks might add a slice of cheese. Some called it Newfoundland steak in some regions, or Saturday night special. Number 6. Water pie. Now, this sounds strange, but hear me out. When you couldn't afford fruit or even sugar for a proper pie, you made water pie. Mix flour, sugar, just a bit, butter, vanilla extract, and water. Pour it into a pie crust. As it bakes, the butter and flour create a custard-like texture. This recipe appeared in several Depression-era community cookbooks as magic pie because people couldn't believe it actually worked. It actually tastes like a sweet vanilla custard pie. Some folks swore it tasted like chess pie or sugar cream pie. My grandmother called it desperation pie, but we loved it just the same. She'd only make it when there wasn't money for apples or berries. Some people called it impossible pie, poor man's pie, or nothing pie. Number 7. Fried cabbage and noodles. A head of cabbage cost a nickel and could feed a family for days. You'd slice it thin, fry it in butter or bacon grease with onions until it got sweet and soft, then toss it with egg noodles. Salt, pepper, maybe some caraway seeds if you had them. Cabbage was called the poor man's medicine because it lasted weeks in a root cellar and provided vitamin C through winter. Some Eastern European families would brown the butter first for a nutty flavor, or add a splash of vinegar for tang. Germans and Poles who came through Ellis Island brought this recipe with them, and boy, did it save families during hard times. They called it haluski or krautfleckerl. Number 8. Milk toast. This was breakfast, lunch, or dinner depending on how desperate things got. Toast stale bread until crispy, put it in a bowl, and pour hot milk over it. Add a little butter, sugar, and cinnamon if you were fortunate. Milk toast was prescribed by doctors for the sick and elderly because it was easy to digest and provided calories when nothing else would stay down. Some called it pap, sop, or invalid food. Kids hated it, but it was warm, it was filling, and a quart of milk and a loaf of bread could feed a family for a day. Some families made cracklin' toast using crumbled cornbread instead of wheat bread. Number 9. Dandelion Salad. When you couldn't afford lettuce, you went outside and picked your salad from the yard. Dandelion greens are bitter, but they're nutritious. Folks would pick the young leaves in early spring, wash them real good, and dress them with bacon grease, vinegar, salt, and a little sugar. Dandelion greens have more vitamin A than spinach and were actively promoted by Home economists during the Depression as free food. People also foraged for wild onions, chickweed, lamb's quarters, and purslane. Nothing went to waste. Some called it yard greens or Depression salad. Grandma would send us kids out with a bucket and we'd fill it for free. Sometimes she'd add hard-boiled eggs if the chickens were laying. Number 10. Prune Whip. Prunes were cheap a pound for about 10 cents, and they lasted forever in the pantry. Stew them until soft, mash them up, fold in beaten egg whites, and chill. You've got yourself a dessert that feels fancy but costs next to nothing. The government actually encouraged prune consumption during the Depression, leading to surplus prune recipes in WPA cookbooks. Some called it Bachelor's Delight or Cinderella's Surprise. It's sweet, it's fluffy, and most importantly, it made kids feel like there was something special on the table. Some families would layer it with stale cake crumbs to make prune parfait. Number 11. Navy bean soup. The military ate this for a reason. It's cheap, filling, and keeps you going. Dried navy beans, water, a ham bone if you could beg one from the butcher, onion, and celery if you had a garden. Simmer for hours until it's thick and creamy. The U.S. Senate has served navy bean soup every single day since 1903, and the Depression-era version was almost identical. Mash some beans against the side of the pot to make it creamy without adding milk or cream. Some called it Senate soup or poverty stew. A pot would last 3 days, and it tasted better each time you reheated it. Serve it with crackers or cornbread, and you had a complete meal. Number 12. Creamed, chipped beef on toast. Military folks called this SOS, and I'll let you guess what that stood for, but civilians ate it too because dried beef was cheap and lasted forever. Chipped beef was developed as military rations, but became a Depression staple because it didn't require refrigeration. Make a white sauce with flour, butter, and milk. Add torn pieces of dried beef. You'd rinse it first because it was salty as the ocean, and serve it over toast. Beyond the military nickname, families called it save our stomachs or stuff on a shingle. When dried beef was too expensive, some families used lunch meat or even Spam later on. It's salty, creamy, filling, and a jar of dried beef went a long way. Number 13. Tomato soup cake. Now, this sounds strange, but it was genius. Use a can of condensed tomato soup as the base for a spice cake. Mix it with flour, sugar, spices, and just a little fat. The tomato flavor disappears, and you get a moist, dark cake. Campbell's Soup Company promoted this recipe in 1933s as a way to bake cakes without eggs or milk, which were expensive. You cannot taste the tomato. It acts like moisture and creates a texture similar to expensive cakes made with butter and eggs. Some called it mystery cake or Campbell's cake. Kids would eat it and never know they were eating tomato soup. That's Depression-era magic rig heats tea there. Number 14. Potato pancakes. Grate raw potatoes. Squeeze out the water, mix with a little flour and egg if you had one, and fry them in bacon grease until crispy. German and Jewish immigrants brought this recipe, Latke's Kartoffelpuffer, and it fed families through multiple hardships. These were breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Serve them with applesauce if you canned any, or just eat them with salt. Some families added onion and called them potato fritters. Others used leftover mashed potatoes instead of raw. Some called it Hoover cakes or poor man's pancakes. A 5-pound bag of potatoes made dozens of these, and they stuck to your ribs. Number 15. Bread pudding. Never, ever throw away stale bread. Never. Tear it into pieces, soak it in milk with a little sugar and cinnamon, maybe an egg if you had one, and bake it. Bread pudding dates back to 11th century England and was called poor man's pudding. Every culture has a version. Raisins if you could afford them, bacon grease for richness, or even a splash of vanilla extract made from vanilla beans and cheap whiskey. Some called it necessity pudding or leftover surprise. This turned garbage into dessert. That's the kind of ingenuity that got people through. Number 16. Egg drop soup. When all you had was broth and an egg, you made this. Heat up water or vegetable broth, add salt, and slowly drizzle in a beaten egg while stirring. It creates ribbons of cooked egg throughout. This Chinese restaurant staple became a home cooking method during the Depression to stretch one egg into a full pot of soup. Add any vegetable scraps you saved, carrot peels, celery leaves, onion skins to the broth first, then strain them out. Serve it over stale bread or crackers, and one egg fed 4 people. Some called it ribbon soup or egg blossom soup. Number 17. Vinegar Cobbler. When you couldn't afford fruit, you faked it. Mix water, sugar, vinegar, and butter. Pour it into a baking dish with a biscuit dough on top. As it bakes, the vinegar and sugar create something that tastes almost like apple filling. This appeared in multiple Depression cookbooks as mock apple pie or water cobbler. Your brain fills in the gaps. The tartness from vinegar reads as fruit, and the sugar makes it sweet. It's not quite apple, but close enough when times are hard. Some called it fake-it cobbler, make-do pie, or imagination dessert. Number 18. Johnny cakes. These go back to colonial times, but they saved Depression-era families too. Cornmeal, water, salt, maybe a little flour or egg. Mix it thin, pour it like pancakes onto a hot griddle. The name might come from journey cakes because travelers could make them anywhere with minimal ingredients. Eat them with molasses, syrup, or just butter and salt. Some folks crumbled them into milk for breakfast. Some called it hoe cakes because people used to cook them on hoes in the field. Or hash cakes. They're plain, but they're filling, and cornmeal was cheap as dirt. Number 19. Peanut butter bread. When you couldn't afford yeast, you made quick breads. This one used peanut butter as the fat and protein. Mix flour, baking powder, sugar, peanut butter, and milk. Pour it in a loaf pan and bake. Peanut butter consumption tripled during the Depression because it was cheap protein that didn't spoil a pound, cost about 20 cents. Slice it and eat it plain, toast it, or make sandwiches with it, and jelly if you had jelly. It's dense, it's filling, and a loaf would last days. Some called it Depression bread or 5-cent loaf. Number 20. Sugar sandwiches. This one hurts to talk about because it means things were really bad. Butter, or more often, lard or bacon grease spread on bread, sprinkled with white sugar. This wasn't a recipe, it was survival. But children remember it as a treat because sugar was sweet and their parents made it seem special. Sometimes cinnamon if you had it, sometimes just the grease and no sugar at all. Some called it poverty toast or wish sandwich because you wish there was something more on it. Parents would smile and tell their kids it was dessert for lunch. That's love right there. Number 21. Liver and onions. Liver was the cheapest meat you could buy. Sometimes the butcher gave it away free. Slice it thin, dredge it in flour, and fry it with onions until it's just cooked through. Beef liver cost as little as 10 cents a pound during the Depression, compared to 25 to 35 cents for ground beef. Soak it in milk first to remove the bitter taste. This was knowledge passed down from grandmothers. Nobody loved it, but it was meat, and meat was precious. Kids choked it down because they knew better than to complain. Some called it butcher's gift or Monday meat. Number 22. Rice pudding. A cup of rice, milk, sugar, and cinnamon. Cook it slow until it's creamy. Rice cost about 5 cents a pound and swelled to 3 times its size when cooked, making it one of the most economical ingredients. Raisins were a luxury. Some folks added a spoonful of vanilla or lemon extract. Others stirred in an egg for richness. Some called it comfort cream or Sunday pudding. This was dessert, breakfast, and sometimes dinner all in one. It was sweet, it was warm, and it felt like love in a bowl. Number 23. Pickle Soup. Now this is an Eastern European specialty that Americans learned to love. Use the brine from pickle jars as the soup base. Add potatoes, maybe some sausage if you could afford it, sour cream if you had a cow or knew someone who did. Polish immigrants brought this recipe, zupa ogórkowa, and it became popular because pickle brine was considered waste but was actually flavorful liquid gold. That pickle juice you'd normally throw away, it's salty, tangy, and already seasoned. It made something from nothing. Some called it jarnik soup or sour soup. Number 24. Oatmeal Everything. Oats weren't just breakfast. They stretched meat, thickened soups, and filled bellies. Mix oats into meatloaf to make the meat go further. Add them to soup to make it thicker. Make oat cakes when you couldn't afford wheat flour. Oatmeal sales increased 35% during the Depression. A canister cost 8 cents and lasted weeks. Oatmeal patties fried in bacon grease became poor man's steaks. Oatmeal mixed with lard became pie crust. Some called it filler food, stretcher grain, or depression's best friend. Number 25. Fried cornmeal mush. Save the best for last. This was breakfast across America. Cook cornmeal in water until thick like porridge. Pour it into a loaf pan and chill overnight. In the morning, slice it and fry it in bacon grease until crispy on the outside. This dish dates back to Native American cooking and saw a massive resurgence during the Depression because cornmeal was cheaper than flour. Eat it with syrup, molasses, or gravy. Some folks ate it with milk and sugar. Others topped it with fried eggs. Some called it Scrapple's cousin, fried mush, cornmeal cake, or hasty pudding. My grandfather ate this every morning for 5 years straight. He said it reminded him there was always tomorrow, and tomorrow might be better. These meals weren't fancy. They weren't Instagram-worthy. But they kept families together. They kept people alive. Our grandparents and great-grandparents knew something we've forgotten. Food doesn't have to be expensive to be nourishing. Meals don't have to be complicated to bring people together. They made do. They got creative. They survived. And maybe, just maybe, there's something we can learn from that today. Not because we have to, thank goodness, but because there's wisdom in simplicity, in stretching ingredients, in wasting nothing. So, the next time you're about to throw away stale bread, or toss that pickle juice, or think there's nothing in the house to eat, remember these 25 meals. Remember the people who came before us, who made something from nothing. That's our history, that's our heritage, and that's worth remembering. If this hit home, subscribe, there's plenty more where this came from. See you next time.